What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode on the RNG podcast. I'm your host, CLT Pathfinder. With me, CLT Shade, and joining us this week is Bryson Goins with Carolina Gaming. Welcome on, brother.
How we doing?
It's all good, man. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you. I know we're all busy and it takes a little time out of your week to do these things, but I'm really excited for this conversation because I know that we know each other and that we talk about all kinds of things esports, but being able to do it on like an open forum is super fun because I think some of the things we talk about, like the regular community, just isn't aware of. So it's really exciting to be able to have some of those conversations.
Yes, sir. I agree as well.
Let's start at the top, man. Like, tell me about Carolina Gaming. Like, where did it come from? How did you start it with the brainchild? Give us your background a little bit.
So I love telling this story just because it has a lot of personal meaning to me. So I would say about 2 summers ago, summer of 2018, I was looking for a position in esports. Not so much to be like an owner of an organization. It was more so like, just to work inside of an organization, maybe even play for an organization. And I was sending out, all sorts of emails, messages, just trying to connect with people. And I was always getting like the same response that, I don't have like an actual background in the industry, but I felt, that I had something to offer, but it was at a unique perspective. And so that's when, I started talking with some of my friends. I was like, what do you think about, maybe making an esports organization with, a brand that's around a region? A lot of the guys sort of like turned their nose at the idea, but I stuck with it. And at some point, I figured out how to make a logo. I made the Carolina Gaming logo. I made a Twitter, and I didn't know if I would stick with it or not. And I think about December and January timeframe, because we're starting about October. That's when I was like, I'm going to go with it. Yeah, October of 2018.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go with it. And I've been pretty much, pedal to the floor ever since. And that's really pretty much how I started it. We do, your basic esports stuff, but I think we do a lot more, and we're a little more unique when it comes to, comparing us to your traditional brands who've been in the game for quite some time, even, others on the amateur level, around our levels. I like to compare and look at what other teams are doing, and then, compare to what we're doing, and try to diversify ourselves a little bit, because I think it helps us, not only grow, but I think it helps us really attract a new audience. And that's what we're really trying to do outside of, just being the Carolina brand. So I think, obviously we have teams in Call of Duty, Rocket League, Tekken, we have a stream team. But we really got some plans, behind the scenes, what we're trying to do. Specifically, I like the plan we're doing with Carolina University, how we're going to work that out. That'll be released soon. So we got some big things coming moving forward, and I'm really excited for the future of Carolina Gaming.
Spoilers ahead, dude.
Maybe some leaks.
What's Carolina University? Can you tell us at all, or like?
So as of right now, it's gonna be like this program for, you always get these messages from these streamers who aren't really in their craft completely yet. They're just getting started out, but they don't necessarily have like the numbers to really benefit the organization when it comes to approaching sponsors. But we still want to help those guys out and nourish their growth. So we figured we would come up with Carolina University. We would take our streamers and we would basically mobilize those guys, move them into, a sort of like teacher role. And, we would enroll maybe, a select amount. I think we agreed upon 25. And those guys would stream for us for 6 months. We'd help them out, help them develop a brand, help them grow. And if we felt like they were going to be promising prospects, we would offer them a spot on our stream team spot. So that's pretty much the essentials of Carolina University. Obviously, that's just the overview, and there's going to be some more details released about that as we approach the launch date.
Okay, cool. No, I think that's we're actually like, I like the idea of like, I feel like we're both kind of at the same level as far as like our numbers, and it's really cool because we started, like, Josh founded the company in October of 2008. 18.
I remember that. I remember me and Josh talking. I think it was Josh on the Twitter accounts. We would go back and forth. Yeah, we would go back and forth some days talking about like some ideas, talking about how we wanted to like help our communities out. And it seems like those days were just yesterday, but it's really almost been a year. So I think it's really cool to see, just how much both of our organizations have done in a year. And I think we got some exciting things, not just Carolina Gaming, but CLT, moving forward.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this whole area is in for some some treats.
Some
That's
big
for sure.
ones.
So
um, yeah, I love that like we kind of mirror each other in like our growth too, and I love like I actually think your branding is so much better than ours because I think you're just like everything's so pretty. Like I love your website and I love like all the logos on your Twitter and just like your overall branding is so awesome. Is that like you or who is that in your organization? Like,
Yeah, for the most part, I will say we just brought on a designer. His name
okay,
is Zach. He's made a few designs over the last month, but pretty much everything prior to this last month was largely in part myself. Even like I said earlier, I designed the logo. I even built the website from the ground up. I think it's one of the things I had to sacrifice because I don't really have the capital to come out of pocket. I didn't really have those connections either, with certain web developers. So I pretty much I went on YouTube one day and I was like, all right, what am I going to do? Looked at some templates and I was like, I don't want to go with a template. I built my own, and that's pretty much what I've done ever since. So I really do appreciate it when you say that you like the website.
yeah,
It took me a couple hours over the span of a few days. So really, it was more like 24 plus hours just building the site, and that's not even including updating it every week, with whatever we have.
sure,
I mean, there's a lot of work that goes in that. I mean, we got lucky. We had a really kind of crappy, janky website, and then we got lucky and met a developer at Raleigh, actually, a playthrough, and his company ended up sponsoring us. And hey, speaking of sponsors, let me go ahead and do a plug real quick. Uh, sorry, but I will forget if I don't do it. Is
no,
basically
no,
what
it's
he's going
good
to do
because we
now.
got to do it towards the beginning. So yeah, you might as well
Yeah,
knock it
yeah.
out now.
Okay, so going off of that, let's give a shout out to our sponsor, Web Real Simple. If you guys go to our website, www.clt-esports.com, you're going to look at a one-of-a-kind website completely designed by Zeus and his team. They really did an amazing job of really giving our website a facelift because it needed it. We got everything that we need on it, calendar, we've got a shop that's going up. People can register. So pretty much anything you can think of, these guys can do. So go check them out, webrealsimple.com, and you'll be able to obviously see them in all our other stuff. Our next sponsor is My Computer Career. If you're working in a job and you do not see a light at the end of the tunnel, I guess you could say, just aren't happy with your life and have always wanted to get into computers and just try something, even if you're not good with computers and you're like, hey, that'd be cool just to at least be in that, check out mycomputercareer.edu. These guys actually changed my life. I was working construction, always worked on computers but never professionally. Took a look at their school, really liked the programs they offered, and decided to give it a try. And without that, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I wouldn't have had the chance to even start to follow my dreams working in construction. So go give them a call. They have a free online career evaluation. It's mycomputercareer.edu. And let them know that we sent you. Let them know Josh sent you, especially, so that way I can look better for them.
Josh
But
is the man.
I have
yeah,
one more actually, so I have another one. So Escape Kings, a local. If you want to go to an escape room, Escape Kings has console setups. They also have escape rooms that you can play in. This weekend or today, if you follow them on Twitter, which I'll post a link in the chat in a second here, and then I'll post it at the bottom of this YouTube video if you're looking at that. If you like and go and follow their page, they're giving out free tickets for the premiere tomorrow of Angel Has Fallen, which is the new who, who's the
was
Gerard Butler movie that's coming out. It's
mhm.
the third one in the series. So they're giving away free tickets for that tomorrow if you follow them on Twitter. So go ahead, drop them a follow. I'm gonna be at the movie tomorrow with my wife Sarah. Come hang out, say hey, tell us that you love CLT and what kind of tournament you want us to run. Because I know everyone's always asking us to run local LANs here in Charlotte. So come out, tell us what you want us to run. Come hang out and watch the movie. That's it for sponsors. We did it.
All done.
Josh, I always throw this like the sponsors on your face when you're talking about them.
I believe it, man. You would do that.
um, cool. So, oh my gosh, there's so many things I want to talk about. Like, there's so many games in my head. How many dedicated rosters do you have right now?
Ooh,
Is that a tough
you,
question?
it's not so much tough. It's just that we're in the midst of I would say like a period where we're looking to acquire new ones and trying to, I wouldn't say phase out the old, but I would say as of right now, definitely we have Call of Duty, Tekken 7. We have one guy on Tekken. We have Rocket League. We sponsor an iRacing team. I wouldn't really say it's like it's not. It's a little different with racing. It's almost like real life racing. We just sponsor the team.
Sure.
We include them, when we approach sponsors and stuff because that's our spot on the car. So I guess you can include that. That's four. And then we have the stream team. So I guess a total of five
Sure.
would be the definite amount.
So is there like an area of gaming that you're trying to get involved in, like that you like love and you want a roster for?
I have always wanted to be involved in Halo. Like honestly, if Halo was the game right now, we probably would not have picked up, these other rosters because that would have been my main focus. That was one of the first games. That was actually the first game I played whenever my dad brought home his Xbox that he bought in Afghanistan. It was actually pretty funny because the Xbox had like an issue with it, and it would always pop up in like this Afghani language whenever it had like the red ring of death or whatever. I don't even know what you would call it, but I had Halo Combat Evolved, so that's always been my dream is to get a Halo roster. I haven't really, looked into it right now. It's a little cheaper to actually participate in it right now, but the prize pools just aren't where I want it to be. So I haven't really, been invested in the scene.
I would say that that's like one of the areas that we talk a lot about is Halo because like all of our staff grew up playing Halo and that's like their game. Like myself included in that. Like Josh, did you play Halo growing up? I imagine you did.
Yeah, man, Halo 2.
Yeah,
Halo 2, man.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, so it's like we talk about Halo all the time, and my guys always want to run a Halo tournament. And I think that's like one of the places we really want to roster, but it's also like really hard right now because the scene's kind of like I'm not gonna say dead, but like very dark. Like...
It's very complicated. So we run the Halo tournaments that we have, the weeklies.
Sure.
And I will say it's not hard to get people to play online, but if you're going to do a tournament in Charlotte, the prize pool is going to have to be significant. It's probably going to have to be 5K plus for at the minimum a 2v2. I think there was it a 1K or a 2K in Philadelphia, I think a month ago, that some teams went out to. But if you want like the big names in the HCS, it's going to have to be, I would say 5K
Well,
plus
Atlantic
for them
City
to
is
come
running
out.
that 50K, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, in like a month or two or whatever. And the Halo scene intrigues me so much because like they have the most diehard fans, but like I feel like if I hosted a tournament and it was like minimal like $250 in like local in Charlotte, like nobody would show up. Like I think we'd get like one or two, you know what I mean? Like it would just be dead.
Yeah, you would definitely get more participants, more caliber participants as well as if you would host it online at $250.
Yeah,
I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, sure. How's the tournament? You guys getting good numbers for that tournament or like?
So the first week we actually exceeded our goal of 8 and we had 10. And I actually didn't run last week's tournament. I had something come up, but we're planning on running the event again this weekend for the last $100 event this month, guaranteed.
Uh-huh.
And then we had the $500 showdown at the end of the month. That's the one I'm expecting to get at least 20 plus teams for. So it's going to be, I think the regular weeklies, your $100 ones aren't going to necessarily bring out like your top tier players.
Sure.
I think we had Shotzi and Falcade at play, but they were the only like HCS team. I think Riot Shock was in it as well. But when we're talking about like your big names coming out consistently, it's definitely gonna be for the showdowns that we host at the end of the month.
Sure. Cool. So transitioning to Call of Duty. I haven't talked to you about this, but like I haven't seen a roster from you guys for the 7th.
Yeah, well, there's been some, I would say, some issues with not so much on our part, but from the team chemistry wise.
Sure.
I don't really exactly know, exactly who. I don't want to say who because I don't know who.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want to call any names. I just know that there were some chemistry issues, and that we tried to look for I would say a backup roster that we wanted to send, and things didn't go well because there was an actual person that we picked for the backup roster who had been using an illegal controller. So
dude.
I don't think we're actually going to attend as players.
Sure.
I definitely am still likely coming out to the event to watch. I know I'm meeting somebody there.
So I can race you in go-karts, that's why.
Dude,
I'm trying to get beat.
Dude, that's going to be fun. I love go-karts. But I'm definitely still planning to come out to the event, watch, and just meet some people. I know, is there still a good amount of pros we're expecting to come? Or
Yeah,
pros? I don't remember how that's going to go.
Yeah, so John and Spacely live out here, so I think they're making 2 separate rosters. It's all rumors at this point. Brack has made appearance on some rosters. Assault, and his girlfriend Allie. So there's been a couple that are definitely interested in looking at coming, which is cool, right? Because like I don't get to talk to those
Really
guys or
good.
hang out with them. Yeah, like it would be fun to like just chat with those guys and get their opinions on what next year looks like and what the future of COD looks like and all those things. Because I think that the state of Call of Duty, it's like there's so many questions, and we got like a little bit of a release of what next season looks like earlier today when it's like players have to make at least 50 grand a year and get so many things and it's cool to also see. I don't know if you saw this in like the rules, but like you they don't have to live in the city, but I would imagine like most of the teams will make you live in their city that you're playing for. You know what I'm saying?
I know for a fact that if I had a franchise spot, I would be most comfortable knowing that my players were in my city,
Yep.
coming to a facility every day and scrimming versus playing with each other online. I mean, it's just more quality scrims. I feel
Sure.
like when they're scrimming together.
So Envy made it to where you have to be in their city to play on
Yeah.
their
I saw
roster.
Hastro tweet that out where he's like, if you're coming to play for Dallas, you're living here.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that just makes the most sense.
Yeah.
If you want to be the most competitive team in the league, especially at that level, I think it just makes the most sense.
Well, it also depends on how much money your org has after buying a franchise,
That too.
because that's expensive.
It did say that you didn't have to actually accommodate them for housing, but I assume that if you're not helping them with housing, they're going to want more in their initial contract. So yeah, the money is definitely going to be an
I
issue.
mean, 50,000 might be the minimum, but like those players are making way more than that right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think on average it's like 300K. Like right now. So like I feel like it's a really interesting time when you look at like what it looks like, what the future of the scene looks like, and I think that I would love something like that for Charlotte, just because. So if you had a Charlotte-based team, like you're not just playing Call of Duty. Like in my contracts, there's going to be like certain media rights where like you have to come out for certain videos and for certain photo shoots and like do like um fan interaction events where like you're hanging out with the fans and getting to know your community and all that stuff because that's like your
Yep.
base, you know what I mean? Like if you're not doing that kind of stuff when you host like a home event, like who's going to show up and come see you? Nobody.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I think when we talk about contracts specifically, I mean, I think the highest paid player is probably going to be Simp, just based off the obvious. I mean, there could be somebody else, but I think the obvious, it would probably be him. I mean, even though Modern Warfare is going to be a different game, but
Yeah.
the contract period is before the game even comes out. So I would assume if he signs a contract, he'd be the highest paid. And I think that's going to range very high. So if I'm paying a player that much, you dang right they're going to be going out and doing media rights. They're going to be doing all of these things. They're going to be, going out. I'm going to make them go to Panthers games. I'm going to make them go to Hornets games.
Right.
I'm going to make them appear at, all of these events,
Yeah.
meet and greet, schedule these meetings with, Hornets players, Panthers players, if they allow us, of course. And, get them to, explore Charlotte. It just makes the most sense
Sure.
for the bang for my buck, honestly.
Sure. I wonder how teams will make more money around their players. Cause right, like that's what they have to turn it into. Like they have to somehow turn it into more of a money making business. And I'm curious to see what that will look like in like 3 to 5 years and how they change their model based off of the players they collect. Cause like certain NBA teams don't necessarily go for the win. They go for like the players that have clout. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they build their brand off of the players they kind of grab.
Yeah, I definitely think. Well, I do know this with the whole model that they have for the league. If they're planning on doing the home games like it's supposed to be, obviously I don't know if that's going to be like that season one because there's a lot of things that go into that.
Sure.
If they're planning on doing the home games, you got ticket sales right there, but you got to actually sell the tickets. And I think it's like you said, the people have to know who these guys are for these events. So I don't know exactly how they're going to maneuver those players into these, positions to actually help them, gain awareness effectively. But it's definitely going to be a huge task for the organization, the general managers, and all those guys to really come up with. Because I mean, if I'm paying you that much money, I'm going to need to see more than just results, in Call of Duty. Because if we're not winning, then what money are we making?
Sure. Yeah. And you saw, so for those who didn't see, today two more slots were announced. One in Miami. I think it's Miami. Florida. I'm pretty sure it's Miami.
Yeah, it's Miami.
And then the other one was purchased by the Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles again. So that makes two teams in Los Angeles, one in Dallas, one in Minnesota, New York, Atlanta. Yeah, Atlanta's
Yep.
one, and then Toronto, and then I think France is the last.
Yeah,
But those
Paris.
ones, yeah. So it's like And it's cool to see the document today. They're planning to expand to 28 teams total, right? So like if we look at, the top 28 cities, I was thinking cities in the United States, but I guess it's cities in the world though, right? So
Yeah, but Call of Duty is much more of a NA game than
I was
anywhere
getting ready
else
to
in the
say that,
world.
yeah.
So
yeah, that makes
you
sense.
might have like a few outliers, but most of them are going to be here in the States.
So like we're on the list. You know what I mean? Like
You were on the top side of that list as
yeah,
well.
like
So
Activision
it's
Blizzard has they've got to have contacted somebody in Charlotte and they know about it. You know what I mean? Like at the top.
I have no doubt that they've reached out to somebody in Charlotte, and if they haven't, they're pretty much not looking at the right markets if that's the case. Because I mean, you can sell 2 LA slots, you can sell 2 New York slots, but that's still total only 4 plus the others in North America. And if there's only 9 right now,
Yeah.
so there's still 21 or I'm sorry, 19 spots remaining, and let's just say 3 more go to Europe and however many go elsewhere. There's probably more than likely going to be 10 plus still remaining for the United States, and I believe Charlotte is deserving of one of those spots. And whether or not we're a part of that or whoever else is part of it, it would be nice to see the city gain something in terms of esports to that level. I feel like Charlotte over Raleigh, if we're on the topic of it right now,
Dang, yeah.
even though Raleigh has it's more proximity to Cary and that area of, I pretty much would call it the video game of the East Coast with Epic Games and all that stuff. I think Charlotte market wise is more suitable for esports, given the population numbers, the demographics as well.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt that they've contacted somebody. I just don't know if they've contacted the right people yet.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, like
we would have heard about it by now if it was the right people.
Yeah, because I feel like we could be a resource to like whoever that might be. Like somebody that just wants to get involved in esports and doesn't necessarily understand or get it. Like we could help them just understand it and get it so that they could monetize it and they could be happy, and then we could pursue the passion of esports and making that the greatest thing here in Charlotte.
Yeah, and I feel like to me, since we're on the topic of them contacting somebody, I guarantee you they have had somebody reach out to at least the sports team owners here.
Sure.
So Jordan, that ownership group,
Tepper,
sure, that ownership group. There's no way they haven't, just given the OWL and its relationship to NFL owners. So I know they have had to at least heard about the CDL, especially with the Minnesota Vikings investing. There's no way other NFL teams haven't heard about it.
Oh, yeah.
Now the LA Rams. So,
Robert Kraft too, he's involved.
Yeah, with the OWL in Boston. There's no way they don't know. So I think it's just either convincing those entities or maybe they're just not the right entities that are to be suited for esports here in the area.
What's really interesting too, like esports is so innovative and new. Like I don't know if you saw, Josh, you might have seen this on LinkedIn, but Gary Vee was talking today how about the next big thing is going to be esports. It's going to be like a top 3 sports.
Top 3.
Yeah, so it's like that could totally put Charlotte from like a number 17 city to like a number 5 city. Like if we just kind of grabbed onto esports and pushed it forward,
Yeah,
we're already at 16. Okay, don't.
Was it 16? What?
Yeah, we're 16.
What? Yes.
And the thing is that I've always, when I pitch to people who aren't necessarily endemic to the space but want to be, I always pitch the idea of a LA of the East Coast when it comes to entertainment and specifically esports.
Yeah.
Because Atlanta is that right now, but Atlanta doesn't know it. I mean, they own the spot. Well, I take that back. New York is that right now, but it's New York. They're always going to be New York. But I think there's an opportunity for Charlotte to really be the LA of the East Coast because I mean, the city's great, the city's growing. The demographics are perfect. There's all sorts of things to do here. There's sports franchise and everything. It might not necessarily be as open of an environment as LA is. Granted, I wouldn't personally live in LA. It might not have, the billionaires, the millionaires, and all the tech moguls as LA, but I think it has the opportunity to be that just because of the growth of the city so far. And it may not be that in the next 50 years, but, esports would definitely help it be that, at some point in this century. I feel like that's the perfect opportunity for investors for now, who are, I would say, in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
But, it's harder to convince them than it seems a lot of the times.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So what's really interesting about that is I think that like I've looked at UNCC a little bit more in depth, and we actually recently, me and Josh, got to talk to the president of their club. We're hoping to have him on a podcast at some point, but I think that it was interesting because I didn't realize how big that community they have is over there. It's massive. It's huge. Yeah.
It's
and
huge.
You're in it, right? Like you live over there. So you hang out with those nerds.
Well, I've only been to one LAN, and it was a year ago. It was a year ago. It's about a year ago. This time last year.
Yeah.
And I only been to that. I was only It was the only LAN I had went to at the time. I haven't been back, but I joined their Discord. I hang out. I check some stuff out. I look and see what's going on in there, and it's got a ton of people in it. They know what they're doing. They know what they want to do. Um, you know, Even on a more like detailed level, I've tried to convince them to pursue a varsity program because I think they have the support for it. I think they have the members, and I think they got the right thing. So I I personally would like to see that happen for UNC Charlotte and its group because I go there or I go here, but that's just one of those things that I feel like is also hindering them as well. Is that it's so far off for the leadership here of making a varsity program. So it sucks for that community. I'm a part of it, but that's also why I founded Carolina Gaming as well, to give those guys something for when they graduate. And same with you guys with CLT
Sure,
Esports, to give those
definitely.
guys something when they graduate that they can funnel into and be a part of.
Yeah. No, that's actually exactly what we said. Like, hey, we want to work with you to be able to groom your talent onto like the next level of what that might be. And I think that like it's hard because it's so funny. The two of the other guys that work for the organization are starting their own like mini podcast for us, and they're really discovering like what a gamer is, right? Because I think a gamer is so many different things. Like you can love Dungeons and Dragons and Magic and this thing over here, or you could love World of Warcraft and RPGs, And then there's like shooters as like our own little genre, and I feel like a lot of what esports is kind of become shooters for me anyway. Like that's kind of where if I was gonna put myself in a bubble of games, I'd put them in shooters or like
Mhm.
mate, because I don't really play Rocket League or League of Legends. I think they're both very competitive games, but like MOBAs kind of have their own like set of gamers. But I say all that to say like UNCC is so big and they have all these different communities. It's really challenging to kind of hey, let's just make it super competitive all the time because at some level it's about community, and I think it's really hard to
Yeah.
balance, being super competitive and having a community because being super competitive kind of kills your community at times.
It does, and that's also a part of it. I can definitely agree to that because when you go to these LAN events, I've only been to one, but I definitely witnessed it. Um, Tournaments they have are usually won by your super competitive people, but the majority of the people in the club are your casuals. They
Yep,
just love the game, and
sure.
they go out to play in a tournament to have fun. Whether they get ran through by a really good team or maybe they just have a close match against somebody else who's casual. They're enjoying their time, and I think with it becoming more, professional and being a varsity sport, it would
Yeah,
sort of, resource wise, funnel some of those guys, their
yeah,
opportunities out.
sure.
And I think that you've pointed that out, it's a perfect spot for those guys. But at some point in the future, I do believe it is going to become a varsity program, as with most programs in the nation. And I would hate to see it for that part of the community because at some point it's going to be a little bit of a setback, but it's also going to be for the long term, for whoever comes there 10 years after they first get the varsity program.
Yeah.
It's going to be beneficial for those guys. But again, that's the sacrifices you make right now at the age of the industry.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Interesting thought and like view because I get where they're coming from, right? Like, how do I support my cat community and still make it competitive? And I think it's just a struggle for sure.
Hmm.
Let me look at our list real quick. I know we talked about a couple of things, but I have to remind myself. Let's talk. Oh my gosh, have you guys watched the Rick Fox podcast with Hex this week?
Mm-hmm. Oh
Ooh,
yeah.
I haven't seen that yet. That actually
Oh,
sounds like good content.
oh my gosh. It is super good. Josh, if you want to kind of lead that direction and
Oh
what you thought about
yes.
it, yeah.
Well, I was kind of already following that whole Rick Fox thing because, any time that there is. So, just so everyone knows, I'm very much about the investment side of the business. And anytime I hear any skinny on investors and stuff kind of trouble in the water with these big teams, I'm like digging. I want to find out what it was, why it was. Well, one of the, main investors or owners, board members for Echo Fox is a racist basically, and came out in an email. Rick Fox, said basically told everyone like, "Hey, I'm not going to stand for this. Either we're going to fix this or I'm leaving." And Riot also gave them like a 60-day ultimatum to get him, not Rick Fox, but the other guy off of their board, or else they would lose their LCS spot. So long story short, they eventually, it's weird. So they got him off or something. But the whole thing was, it goes into the fact of what Rick Fox has had to put up with within his own organization. Something that kind of threw me for a loop in that was that he says he hasn't made a single cent off Echo Fox yet. He's just been putting in money, and everything he's making goes back into the company.
Not
And
a dime. That's what we're in for, boys. Not a dime. Just for
well,
the love of the game.
it's much easier to do that when you're already like a multimillionaire. As opposed to someone who is barely making enough to live on. But he's at the point where he can do that, and that's okay. He is very passionate about his company. Very passionate about gaming as a whole. He has been he's been the voice that we needed when people, in the mainstream media are like, oh, esports isn't, these guys aren't real gamers. Esports isn't a real thing. Like, he's 100% been that voice for us where we couldn't be. And, I really respect him for that. And also just like his demeanor, the way that he like is so soft spoken and such a nice guy. Like, I want to hang out with the guy. I want to just like, meet him.
Chill with Rick Fox. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, for real. He just seemed like a really personable guy. And everyone that I've talked to that's talked to him says that that's just how he is, man, with everybody. Like, super nice.
Yeah.
Very down-to-earth guy. Loves esports. Loves the competition of it. And, like, what a better guy to like meet and hang out with and kind of pick his brain than, someone like him.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was basically him and Hex talking about the struggles he's had to go through at Echo Fox and is still going through. There's some stuff he couldn't say because legally, obviously, he had to keep his mouth shut. But if you haven't watched it, you guys everyone watches needs to go check it out. The Hex and Rick Fox. It's probably the best. I guess best podcast that I've
It's
seen.
the eavesdrop. Like, there's been a couple of really good eavesdrop podcasts. Like, but he was definitely like top 3 for sure.
I think for me, he was probably just the best podcast.
I gotta watch that.
Yeah, it's really good. I think best thing that I saw from it is like Rick Fox is the kind of guy who's very much like Hex. Like, if you watch Hex's vlogs, especially when he's in the house, like, he would go in and like be with the players every day and make sure like the house was clean and that they were scrimming and that they were doing all the things they were supposed to do, and kind of just like being a dad for them, because like a lot of young men that are gamers like don't have a good father figure, right? So like being a good dad for them is one thing they need. And like Rick Fox kind of told the story of like he went in the house and he cleaned the house, you know what I mean, and got stuff ready for players and made sure they were taken care of. Where like all the other corporate entities are like, are we making money? Okay, we're not making money. This is an issue. How do we fix it? You know what I mean? Like, where it's like more about the care of the player than it is about making money in the industry. And that's
very much about players.
Yeah, and that struck a chord in me because I was like, that's the kind of leader I want to be. Like, I want to be able to have my team house and where my players are and take care of them and make sure they're good to go and help them through their struggles in life and all those things. And that's what like we desire as men, to like take care of the people that, when I was a gamer at 19, like I didn't have the opportunities they have, right? So being able to provide those opportunities and provide them with like the road to success. That's why I loved it.
Yeah, I remember watching, I think it was this summer actually. I remember watching, I was just dabbling on YouTube and I found some videos about esports, and I was just going through looking at like team house videos and stuff. And one of the like suggested videos was Rick Fox takes his team on a private jet, and he's like in there and he's talking to his team and he's like, "You guys ever been on a private jet before?" And they're like, "No." And they're like, This is scary." And he's like, "Oh, it's not too bad." And I was like, "That's just awesome." That I think they flew it out to Florida for the LCS event. That was
there you go, yeah.
Or one of the split events that they had last season, and it was just an awesome video to watch because you wouldn't think that he would be that involved, and when you see something like that with a figure as popular as he is in multiple industries, it just makes you think how much people could be doing versus what they are doing, and not just in esports but everywhere in the world. He's one of the few people that I look at in the industry who actually knows what they're doing and is going above and beyond that. And there are a couple, organizations that I look at that, really subscribe to that model, and there are plenty more that don't. So, I think that's a huge hindrance for the industry right now as well. I don't really like to touch too much on the negative because, first of all, this is y'all's podcast. And second of all, it's just, it's the worst part of the industry to talk about, and I just get so fired up.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, you gotta talk about the negative stuff sometimes. Okay.
You do though. You do though. You got to bring light to it.
That's right.
Exactly. I mean, everyone thinks that owning an esports org and running is easy, but I mean, honestly, like, when it comes down to stuff like, in a sense, like roster changes, a roster change as an owner is technically firing people.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that when you like the player, whatever, they're just not producing like how you need them to. And, you have to be able to, at the end of the day, say, even though this is, you're building that family atmosphere, at the end of the day, it's still a business. Like, you still have to make enough money to keep the business afloat. And, those hard decisions people don't think of that when they start an esports org. They just think it's going to be them and their friends, and that's all it's ever going to be. Well, I mean, it can be that if you don't want to take it seriously. But, trying to get to that next level, you have to make moves, and it's tough. So anybody watching thinking that, our job is always super easy. I mean, there's nights where we stay up till 1 or 2 in the morning, working on stuff, designing apparel, working on websites, stuff like that. Because for one, we can't afford people to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves. And for another, I'm pretty sure all of us are perfectionists and want it done our way. So,
yeah, it's definitely me. It's definitely me.
So, it's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And I say this a lot in our podcast because I want people to realize, like, there's a lot of young kids that I see in these Discords that have esports orgs and stuff, and they're talking about doing these leagues or clubs or starting teams. And I just want them to know, like, hey, be ready for it because it's going to come fast, and if you take it seriously, it'll work out. But we're saying from experience, it's a hard thing to do. You have to be ready for it. So
you really do. It's one of those things where it looks easy from the outside just because success can be blown out of proportion. It's so easily. You can post one time on Twitter and you have 300 followers, and somebody's like, it's that easy. But that post could have been you getting a team that's costing you $2,000 or $3,000 to send to an event, and they actually got second. But guess what? You didn't make any money off that event, and you got 300 followers. Mm-hmm. Who really won?
Yeah.
Your fan who likes you now, or you won? And then if you stick with it for so long, maybe the money comes back. Once you get to that level. But at the end of the day, it takes time, and I think people who are on the outside looking in think it's a lot easier than what it really is, just because they can see the numbers a lot easier from an outside perspective, but they don't actually see the pocket numbers. They don't see what actually goes in and out of the pockets either.
Man, you hit on exactly what I wanted to talk about. How you said about sending a team. Okay, so you have a static team, I guess you could say, a team that you guys have that constantly goes out. Okay. I'm going to say this as someone who is new to the Call of Duty scene, okay? I think, personally, that it is almost a waste of money for most organizations to sponsor teams to go to these events when organizations are getting nothing in return. Not one tweet, not one anything from these players to send them. Some pay for plane tickets, and then to pay for a $300 to $400 team pass. What are the organizations getting out of it? And I had a long discussion with people. People just think orgs have all this money and that we're just like, oh yeah, like let's totally send these guys and not get anything in return. Like, it's not like that. We have to see value in it. And when people are like, well, look at all these orgs not sponsoring. Okay, what has happened in the past to make us want to sponsor? Did you guys win? Did we make money? Did we get followers? I mean, what did we get in return? And most of the time, the answer is crickets. We get nothing. So, players have to kind of, from their end, really have to start producing more. I mean, the esports has changed from just players going out and playing in tournaments. Now it's about like influencers. Like, how much influence does that player have? What can he bring to the table for an org? And if you don't stream or have a following or can provide value in that sense, why would my organization sponsor you? Like, you could be the best guy, and like, you could be one of the best pro-ams in the world, but if you're not tweeting out, if you're not doing anything for my org, I don't want to sponsor you. Like, I really don't. And people can't get mad at orgs for not wanting to sponsor them when the past has shown that nothing's going to change with these guys. They're going to keep hopping from org to org saying team pass fights.
Yeah, they're just like, give me my $300, and then I want to. Once they give you the money, it's like, oh, I don't know that guy. Yeah, we're representing our team. Whatever.
Yeah,
I think we got really lucky in that sense because I was really new to the industry at that time, especially when it came to finding teams and sending teams. I almost got burned by the first team we were going to send to Fort Worth. They were really good, but I didn't understand the scope of the open bracket at the time. I thought, we're going to go we're gonna play and we're gonna win some money. And I was like, okay, that's gonna work. I did my research. Turns out, that's not how it works. And then they were asking for plane tickets and a team pass. And I was like, well, I don't mind funding team pass, but these plane tickets is what's gonna cost me a lot of money. So let me take a look at this one more time. Looked at it and I was like, okay, that's not a great investment. And then Matrix came along and he's like, hey man, you guys looking for a local team? And I was like, I don't really know of many local events going on. And he was like, we don't mind traveling out of state to go to the events as long as you can cover Team Pass. And I was like, I can definitely do that.
Deal.
Exactly. And I was like, all you got to do is just play for me, for this entire season, because most of you guys are AMs anyway. You can't even go pro. So, there's no point in you team hopping right now because the chance of you winning open bracket is 0 because you can't actually go play an open bracket. So you just play for me the entire season, and once the season's over with, we'll discuss your future with the organization. And that was pretty much agreed upon from the start. And all I would do, was fund them for whatever event they wanted to go to. So we went to AFD, went to CLT. They went to an event under us prior to that, which was CGS, but it was free. But I funded them for those 2 events.
Yeah, that's where I met those guys there.
Yeah,
they told
me about that.
They beat me.
They were like, yeah, they did. They were like, you should go follow these guys. And I was like, I already follow them. I was like, I already talked to CLT and whatnot. We didn't actually have jerseys on that event, so I don't know if they told you they played for us, but
yeah,
they did. So yeah, after that, we got jerseys for them to go to AFD, and then in total, I've spent about $1,500. Haven't made a dime back, but I think just for the relationships I've established with them, the actual followage we have gained and the influence that they've brought us, it may not be 50,000 on Twitter, but it was worth $1,500 to spend on a team that only went to local events. We got some exposure. We learned this industry, from the most grassroots level possible. And we even made some connections with some TOs, you guys, AFD, CGS.
Hold on. I like to shy away from the TO name, okay? Because CJ knows.
TO? What's TO?
Initially, TOs were from. Well, there you go. You can use that as well. But yeah, so we met you guys out of it, and we met a lot of other entities. We even met some other Call of Duty players and whatnot. So I think 1,500 wasn't bad. I'll even say the number.
Yeah.
But it wasn't bad. But at the end of the day, we haven't really spent much else. Everything else that we've done has been virtually just putting in time. So I think $1,500 for about a year in existence is actually not too bad. And I think, for the amount of growth that we've had so far and what we plan on doing in the future, I think, I have the right mindset. I think I've got the right team around me to, make things go around for, still banging for the buck for the next year and probably for the year after that. Until, obviously, unless an investment comes along. But I think we still have the proper mindset to make things happen. And most teams don't. Most teams think the money's going to flow after you do one good tournament, whether it's grassroots or CWL, even though CWL is not an option anymore for Call of Duty. But things happen, and, these bad organizations are just out there.
Yeah, no. So TO being a tournament organizer.
Oh.
Yeah, no. We started out as a TO. We definitely did, and we still do that stuff because that's we can make money from there to support how we send our teams places is by these tournaments. The money that we make off these goes right into the bank, and it goes either back into buying stuff for the company or team passes and getting ramped up for the next out of town tournament. Because as you know, travel can be expensive, and we pay for our guys where they sleep and stuff like that. And we pay for food, and by food I mean Little Caesars $5 hot and ready pizzas.
Hot and ready.
Yeah, but we try to do as much as we can outside of an actual salary because that's just we don't have enough sponsorship money for that, which we're hoping to get. But it's just one of those things where like being a TO isn't bad. To me, it will wreck your nerves. Gosh, man, from a financial standpoint, it just will destroy you. Because Call of Duty kids, and this is something I've talked a lot with CJ, are really bad about registering at the last possible minute. Like our last Call of Duty event that we did, that you guys were there, I mean, it was like literally like a few days before the event, and all of a sudden all these teams registered, and we were like, thank God. Because it seemed like there was like not that many people, and all of a sudden all these teams that had been saying they're going to register, that we were like, they're not going to register, finally registered. So we see, if you're watching this and you're going to our tournament and haven't registered, like you need to, okay? Because I follow those numbers, and it helps us track for logistics wise to help like kind of gauge where we need to be and stuff. So, when people do early registration and it's like $25 or $50 off, it really helps the organizer out by helping us see what we're looking at, as far as outcome turnout, because then we can take those numbers to potential sponsors for the events and stuff like that. So what you guys might not think is a big deal by holding off on paying for team passes or something, or you don't, it actually kind of helps us out when you do that. So for all the teams that have already, bought their pass, thank you. And for the ones that are going to buy the pass, let's get on it, because we need you to sign up so I can see, man. I'm really trying. We're trying to do more for you guys, but we can't do more until we see how many teams are actually going to be coming out. So.
No. Let me elaborate on this. It is not just Call of Duty. The Halo tournaments we run online are the same thing. I think the first tournament we had, the $400 tournament we ran back in June, we had like 5 teams registered the day before, and I was like, I really don't want to cancel this event. The day of, there was like 15 passes that were purchased, and I even marked them up, to incentivize them buying it the day before. They didn't mind spending $5 extra to register the day of. They just wanted to play because they saw so and so playing, and we're just gonna register now. So now there's like 20 people I have registered. I had planned on only running like a 6 or 7 team event. Now I got 20 teams. Got to redo the brackets and everything. No big deal, but it's stressful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It is. It is. And it's just, I don't know. There's so many things that like we're eventually gonna shift out of just doing. We're still gonna do some smaller tournaments, but as you know, like the love is owning the team and running like the team and being with the players that's really where our heart's at. For all those people out there that want to start an org, hey, get with us. We will help you. We'll show you how to do it, and we will hand it off.
That's like the reason we started running tournaments, is because like there's like 4 or 5 LAN centers here in Charlotte, and like I feel like they could create quality tournaments. So, like I feel like sponsors would be automatically drawn to them based off their equipment alone. And they could say, hey, bring in a sponsor, give us $500, and just run a tournament there. And like CLT Esports does not have to be involved in it in any way. And that wouldn't hurt my feelings, because I would still show up to the tournament with my players, and we would just root for the tournament. And then I can be like unbiased against my players too, right? Because that's what I want. But like, it's so interesting that like the quality is just like these LAN centers just don't know like where to even begin to start to run a tournament. It's so weird.
It's not just Charlotte. I've talked to one of my guys, Preston, and he lives down in Wilmington, and they have a little gaming center like that as well.
Yeah.
He's reached out to them multiple times to ask them if they're interested in running events and stuff. They have no interest at all, and you would think that them being a gaming center, they would be interested in holding these events consistently, bringing in a little extra money.
Yeah.
Maybe you got to actually pay your staff another 3 or 4 hours hourly. But you're making 200 or $300 extra per event you run for small scale, and maybe it scales up in the future, and maybe not. Maybe you just stop running because it's not making money. But if you don't try, you won't know. They're not even interested in trying. I won't even name the center, but it's just interesting to me how many centers there are out there.
They
like
also
that.
don't take advantage of social media at all. Their social media numbers suck. They're awful.
Trash.
Yeah.
I'll be straight up.
Well, it's funny, Command Post has been trying lately, so we've gotten them on with Web Real Simple, our one of our sponsors, and Zeus has been with them, because Zeus actually is really good with social media too. He's very smart, knows what he's doing. So he went with them. I referred Zeus to them, and he's been helping them out a lot. And they've been making efforts to, they do Fortnite tournaments. They've been doing Mortal Kombat tournaments. They're trying to really jumpstart it. I told them, because they only have 5 PCs, I said, hey, you guys need at least 7 more PCs if you want to do like Overwatch tournaments or League stuff. So they're buying 7 more PCs. They listen. The owner wants it to work out, which is good, but we need more than just one place trying to do it. It's got to be like multiple places. For as many, like CJ said, there's like 4 centers here. They may not just be dedicated, LAN centers, but they have consoles and PCs. They might be an escape room or something like that, but they have the potential to do like something huge. And it's just like do we need to like hand walk you guys through everything? I mean, it's just it's what it is.
And I hate to say that like being negative about what it is. I just don't like. I cannot comprehend what their thought process is of like why they do like so if it's me, if the roles are reversed, like I don't care how I get people in my center, but I want everyone to at least visit my center and go there at some point for something. And it could be like a free gaming event, it could be a tournament, it could be a community night or whatever, but like the more people that know about my center will come to my center for like a fun activity or to get away or whatever, right? And so like anything that helps that advertisement piece is like a big deal, and they just like they don't. And I don't know. It's not always like as negative as I make it sound, but it's really challenging. It's more challenging than I thought it would be to get people. I thought people would see what we did like after one or two tournaments and just smoke us. You know what I mean? Like it would take one or two tournaments, but like even then, like we've run like 3 or 4 little things now, and like people are still not catching on.
Well, it's hard. It's honestly, it's hard though. We put a lot into our events, so
True.
it may not be to the level of what we do. Because I mean, apparently, our like Call of Duty event is actually better than like most of the well-known amateur Call of Duty events, and that was our first time doing it. So
It
now that we're going in number
was
two,
really
and
hot though. All right.
yeah, yeah, well, it won't be hot this. Well,
It was
hopefully
hot.
it won't be hot this time. But
Poor,
we got
poor Bryson showed up in his suit and got
It was
melted, dude.
so hot, dude.
so you know not to show up in a suit for the next one, right?
And the thing is, I went outside to cool down. It was so hot in there.
It smelled in there too, yo. Those kids smell bad.
Yes, please wear deodorant to the next event, whoever's going. I'm gonna look right in the camera now and say it, please, for everybody else's sake in the building. Just please. But I think to touch on the little LAN center thing,
Yeah.
because this has always been something that's aggravated me. To me, and I'm not blaming you guys when I say this, because everybody has their own time when they get into esports. But to me, I got in at the perfect time because of my age and just because of where I was in
You
life.
saying we're old?
Yeah,
No,
you
no,
calling
no,
us
no.
old,
I'm
dude?
saying there was an opportunity for someone else over the last few years in Charlotte to make this stuff happen, and they didn't step up to the plate.
Sure.
Not calling out any names because I don't know who it was, but there have been people, in these positions who knew what esports was in this area who didn't step up to the plate and do this and set this infrastructure up for us to actually come on and take the torch.
Sure.
So we're having to do it now.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's no big deal, but that's always something that's gotten on my, I guess, nerve, just because I was not of age at the time to actually have some influence in the area. I didn't actually have the idea, and now that I do, I can actually help contribute to that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's worse, the fact that it took this long for us to come along. Granted, us having our own things in life, or if it's the centers still not being 100% on board with what is going on now.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them. So I've talked to all the LAN centers. A lot of them knew Hastro. Like a lot of them sat down and met with Hastro. Isn't that
And-
amazing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they saw it. They saw it way bigger than what we do it, and still.
And nothing of it. Nothing of it.
It's wild, dude. I know. I get it. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, it blows my
It
mind.
just, I don't really know why Charlotte had to be this city. I guess it's because we're here. I guess it was always meant for us to be in this position.
I'm waiting
but
for somebody to show up and smoke us too. By the way.
if that, let me put it this way. If somebody shows up and tries to smoke either one of us, I'm gonna step up to the plate and say, where were you 3-4 years ago?
That's right. Yeah.
I'll take it to the media if I have to, because
Dude,
it makes no sense.
Yep. Well, it's interesting. Like, I really think that in like 3 or 4 years after doing this, we're both going to be in really, really good positions just for putting in the work for these next, this time. And what's going to happen is somebody's going to show up with $100 million, and they're going to want, what we have. You know what I'm
3 or
saying?
4 years, my man. I'm working on 1 to 2 years at the most.
Same.
I was being
As CEO, I have to
optimistic.
say same.
I was giving myself some downfalls, okay?
if somebody who knows esports shows up with $100 million, and let's just say we are established and whatnot, and they try to take us down rather than be a part of us, I think they'd be a little naive in thinking that it'd be easy, because I think the connections you guys have made, because I check out the tweets all the time. I look at the comments, and I try to see engagement-wise where you guys are at, and I compare it to us like I do with most
Sure,
organizations.
we do the same
and,
thing with you, man. Of course.
Yeah, and I'm looking to see engagement-wise what's going on. You guys have pretty good engagement. We have pretty good engagement, and our numbers are growing.
Yep.
If this continues, and let's just say at some point it becomes exponential rather than linear, and say we start growing more rapidly, and let's just say this guy doesn't show up next year, because at the end of next year, I definitely think we'll both be at a position on social media where we're pretty well known, not just in our areas.
Sure.
If he doesn't show up then, I think there's going to be a real challenge for him, even with money. Obviously, he can throw all the money in the world, but I think people in esports are getting smart to the big guys with money.
Yep.
Even sponsors are getting smart to the big guys with money. They don't want to work with people who just have money. They want to work with the authentic people like you and I, Josh, the real guys who are working every day to make this happen. And, if he does show up, so be it. We'll just have to take him down.
That's right. Well, because I think at that point, because we both are developing our fan connections, right? Like, in your base is bigger than ours, honestly. Like, yours is all of the Carolinas, right? We just want the city of Charlotte to be able to love us, and like. I honestly think in the next year, because our focus is honestly content. That's what this podcast is. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're interacting with our community, with the chat, with the people that comment on the YouTube video. That maybe in a year people are gonna come back and watch these videos and be like, oh my God, they were right here talking about this specific thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I hope that happens.
No, I do too. I hope somebody's watching it right now and like looking at all our other content, because this is just kind of the beginning. We're gonna do event videos following the staff, and then like game videos of like every week we go out and play a game together or whatever. And it's gonna be like all kinds of YouTube series where you're getting to know the Charlotte Esports players, staff, owners, whatever. Right?
Yeah, and there'll be the video when I go and pick up my new Corvette at the dealership. I will have that. Is that right, babe? My wife hates that always.
I've always wanted to elaborate on this in more detail. I want us to be the Carolina Panthers of the Carolinas, and I want you guys to be. I'm not saying this to be negative, because the Charlotte Hornets suck in basketball, but they obviously have a franchise in the NBA.
There you go.
I want you guys to be the Charlotte Hornets,
and
they work together in their own respect, because I can't really compare you guys to the Carolina Hurricanes, even though they have a championship, because you're the Charlotte Esports, you're not the Carolina Esports. So I've always looked at it that way. I'm not just going after, market share in Charlotte. I'm going after market share in the entire, Carolina area.
Sure.
So whenever people, try to, ask me, are you worried about these guys? And I'm like, they're there, but it doesn't mean we can't share the same, audience just because, they're in Charlotte and Charlotte's a part of Carolina. I mean, and vice versa, really, because, I mean, people in the Carolinas go to Charlotte. That's the place to go. If not Myrtle Beach, then Charlotte. So
no, that's what's going to happen, dude. That dude with the $100 million is going to come through here. If we get it, I'm going to go, Bryson, let Charlotte Esports buy you. You keep your name and run it the way you want, but be one of our companies, dude. That is the game plan. You guys have the franchise. You have it all.
We'll take it and run with it.
We're one big happy family. We're all making tons of money now. But, there's a lot of things that, like, even just like that, joking around, but all jokes aside, there's ways that we can involve each other's organization, because I feel like out of all the Carolinas, we are the two leading, esports organizations.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
By far.
We span more than just one game or, more than one genre. And our followings are much bigger than any other organization. Even like the Raleigh teams and stuff, they don't have big followings, which is surprising, because they have a lot more stuff that goes on there. So, I think we're set up in a good, like you said, in a good spot at the right time, right place. That's what it is. Right time, right place. The people are wanting to know about it. It definitely helps if Fortnite holds giant, esports tournaments, and these kids are making millions of dollars, because it gets all those people like looking back at us like, oh, hey, let's talk esports, man. So it works. But
yeah, and it's like I said before, when it comes time to, when we actually get to that point, because I very much so believe that, Charlotte Esports, if you keep on the same track that you're on, and obviously you're going to have to refine the business model if you're doing more content in the future, and you guys have already made that plan.
Yeah.
And likewise with us, because, right now we're doing what we're doing, but, who knows what we're going to be doing 6 months from now. We're thinking about it, but who actually knows what will go on. But when the time does come, and even if nobody, approaches, this region, and we're still very much grassroots, we'll have the connections and the sponsors to continue to sustain our organizations long enough for us to actually get to that level where, it actually is something that branches out further than just the region itself. Because at the end of the day, we're not competing with each other, and there's nobody we're competing with. It's virtually whoever can take off and run the fastest between us, it doesn't matter
I don't.
because we're running in different directions, but it's also in the same direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this, but like we get a lot of follows. Our new like big follower thing is like other kids starting esports orgs that have like 10 followers that follow us. I've
Hmm.
seen that more and more as we've gotten bigger.
I haven't actually dabbled into it. I've seen in the recent like 2 months, I've seen more organizations by kids in our area started.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. I don't know if
I
it's
think it's
because of
us.
what
I
we've done.
actually think
Yeah,
it's us. Like they see us and they're like, "Oh, I can build something better." So then they start.
and I hopefully it's inspiring
Oh
to
yeah,
them,
dude.
and I don't mind the competition either because it creates for a more diverse industry. But hopefully
It makes
if
us
you're
all
if you're
better.
watching this,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're watching this, I'm gonna try my hardest to compete with you. I'm not just gonna let you come in the space and think you're just gonna dominate. I mean, what else would I be if I'm an
Yeah.
organization owner? You just step on our territory, dominate, and we're just like, hey, take off with it.
No, I get
But
it.
no,
I feel the
I
same
hope
way.
these.
I'm gonna
I
smoke
hope they're
them all.
successful because I don't want these kids to get the wrong idea when it comes to these organizations, and they make an organization and it fails, and they get the wrong idea about the industry. I want them
Sure.
to succeed as much as they possibly can,
Yeah. How many toxic organizations do we see nowadays? I mean, like.
dude. Me and you were just texting about this the other day,
That's
didn't we?
right, dude.
You were
Yes.
telling me about the guy who was like, "Man, sign this, and we'll tell you about
Oh,
it."
that's right. Yes. I don't know if I told you about that, Josh. Some guy randomly poked me and said, "Hey, sign this NDA, and I want to tell you about this esports
Oh yeah,
arena you're gonna sell me or
it's
whatever."
his name's Codburner, isn't that who it was?
God burner.
No, no, you did tell me about it. But hey, real quick before I forget, the one last shout out. Everyone, if you haven't heard, mycomputercareer.edu, make sure to check them out.
Yep.
Free online evaluation, web real simple for all your web development needs, and Escape Kings. They have some of the best escape rooms in Charlotte. They're giving away free tickets for Angel Has Fallen. Find out more about that in the description below.
Below. Yeah, let's just. I'll give you the last word. Just to. We don't have to end the stream necessarily, but we can end the podcast here. Bryson, if you want to like say whatever shout out to whoever, I'll give you your 1 minute of saying whatever you want.
I do want to say, I thank everybody who is a part of Carolina Gaming, and even so at CLT Esports. I don't get to say this a lot to my guys, but it goes a long way. What you guys do, and it may not be the most in your eyes, but just being a part of our communities, helping it grow. Doing something consistently, whether it's streaming, playing, scrimming. It may not be something that you think is big, but it really helps us go at the extra step for you guys as well. And I don't get to say it a lot, but I really appreciate everybody who is involved in whatever capacity you are inside the organization, whether it's creating content, making content. It goes a long way. And as hard as it is to contact me and some days because I'm busy doing stuff, I do appreciate you guys. Each and every day, I think about every one of you, and I just hope that we can, keep running with this thing. Hopefully, we can knock some things out over the next couple months and really make some moves in the industry.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, check out our podcast every week on Tuesdays. You can watch us live on Twitch. It's CLT underscore esports underscore real. Next week we're gonna have Dylan on, who actually owns another Carolina gaming organization called Strange Gaming. So he'll be on with us next week. Be sure to check that out, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.